For today's RETEACH, we are going to be looking at volume just with whole numbers and then volume with fractions. So we're just going to do one problem with whole numbers because that's a little bit easier. The biggest thing that we need to know for volume, we are just multiplying three numbers: the length, the width, and the height. Okay? So really, we just have three different measures here. We have the length, the width, and the height. And we are just multiplying those three numbers together. So 4 times 10 times 3. I'm just plugging that into my calculator. 4 times 10 equals 40 times 3 equals 120. And if we include our units, since we were multiplying 3 units together, whoa, what in the world is that? It's 120 inches cubed. And that is it. So for the volume with just whole numbers, we're just multiplying these three numbers together. Now we're going to look at fractions. So just a quick reminder before we get into volume with fractions, just looking at multiplying fractions in general. The biggest thing here is step 1, we have to make it improper. So what that means is we're taking this mixed number here. I'm going to multiply the 9 times the 3, which gives me 27, plus the 1 on top, which gives me 28 over 3. This mixed number, we're going to do the 1 times the 8 on the bottom, which is 8, plus the 3 on top, which is 11. So now we have 28 over 3 times 11 over 8. The next thing that we would be doing is we would be looking at our two diagonals to see if anything can simplify. I'd use my factor chart. I'd see that 3 and 11, they only divide by 1. 3 divided by 1 is 3. 11 divided by 1 is 11. And then 28 and 8, they both divide by 4. 28 divided by 4 is 7. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And then we would just multiply across. 7 times 11 is 77. 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, so that's just a little quick refresher on multiplying fractions. We are actually going to be looking at some that we just skip the second step. We're not going to be worrying about the simplifying as much. So let's start by just multiplying two fractions together. So first step is we make them improper. So 7 times 2 is 14, plus 1 is 15. So we get 15 over the original denominator of 2 times, same thing here. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 1 is 15. So 15 over the original denominator of 2. And then we're not going to worry about trying to simplify. This one actually doesn't simplify. We are just going to multiply the top and multiply the bottom. So I'm multiplying 15 times 15, which gives me 225 on the top. And then we're going to multiply the bottom. 2 times 2, which is 4. And you can leave it like this. I don't need you to make it into a mixed number, just leave it improper. So now let's add this extra fraction. We've got 3 fraction numbers here that we have to work with. That's going to be more similar to transferring it to volume because there's 3 values that we're always working with. So same thing. First step is to make it improper. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16 over 3. Same thing here. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16 over 3. Same thing here. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16 over 3. So again, all that we are doing here is on our calculator. We are plugging in. We're going to multiply the top. 16 times 16 times 16 gives me 4,096 over, multiplying on the bottom, 3 times 3 times 3. And we get 27. Leave it as an improper fraction, and that's your final answer. Now let's look at transferring this to volume. It's going to be the same steps, we just have to figure out which numbers we're multiplying here. So big thing to notice here, for the volume, when we have these tick marks, that means that all three side lengths are the same. So this is 3 1/3, this is 3 1/3. So first thing that we are doing is we are making it improper, right? So I'm going to write out what we'll have to be multiplying. We'll be multiplying 3 1/3 times 3 1/3 times 3 1/3. These are the three measures that we are working with. 1, 2, and 3. So when we make it improper, we're going to take the whole number 3 times our denominator of 3 is 1, plus 1 is 10 over 3. These are all the same, so we should be getting the same thing. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10 over 3. Over here, 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10 over 3. And then the last step, we are just multiplying that across. So on the top, we are multiplying 10 times 10 times 10, which gives us 1,000 over, on the bottom, 3 times 3 times 3, which equals 27. Our units would be yards cubed. But again, on our formative, don't worry about including the units. All right, one more. So again, we've got these tick marks again, which means it's the same length on all three sides. So our three side lengths, side 1, side 2, side 3, are all the same. I'm going to write out that we are multiplying 4 2/5 times 4 2/5 times 4 2/5. So again, step 1, we're going to make it improper. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22. So 22 over 5 times, same thing here, 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22 over 5, times the last one, 4 times 5 is 20, plus 2 is 22 over 5. Then we're just going to multiply. For the top, 22 times 22 times 22, it's going to be a big number here, 10,648 over, on the bottom, 5 times 5 times 5 equals 125. Again, our units would be cubed. On the formative, you don't need to include the units. And that is your final answer.